When you are a winning organization, like the Commanders are now, teams are going to start looking to pluck some of your talent. I've got your updates on who may be coming, who may be going, right here, right now on Ref the District. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to this episode of Ref the District. I am the Stoner. We have got a fantastic bit of content here for you today. As you know, Washington is now a winning organization, and teams are trying to pluck some of our talent. So we're going to talk about who could possibly be going off of the team and what would happen if they did ultimately leave. So we're going to talk all about that right here. Make sure you leave a rating or review if you're listening on your audio platform, or if you're right here on YouTube or Facebook, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate everyone who does, and spread the word. Ref the District, we're doing some great off-season content, and we want you to be a part of that. So let's get right into what we're talking about here. It's been a long time, obviously. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, that Washington is a hotbed of talent from all over the place within the organization, in the front office, on the field, in the coaching offices as well. And so now that that's happened, now that they've had a 12-win regular season all the way to the NFC Championship game, teams are going to start sniffing around and try and pluck some of that talent, because obviously Washington is doing something right. So that's no different. That's what's happening right now. And so I'm going to give you the updates on a lot of those guys. First, let's start with the front office and Lance Newmark. Now, Lance Newmark has been with the organization for 1 year. He came over from Detroit. He worked his way up in Detroit, and he was there for 26 years, I believe, in Detroit. And now he's the assistant GM here in Washington. Well, he's got some folks sniffing around to try and pluck him to be a team's general manager. We know for sure he interviewed with the Jets. We know for sure he interviewed with the Raiders. But both of those teams decided to go with somebody else. I'm surprised that the Jets didn't take him, because they interviewed him twice. And also they interviewed him twice at the same time with the head coach, Aaron Glenn, who got hired over there. Of course, Aaron Glenn was in Detroit as an assistant coach when Lance Newmark was there. So that almost seemed like it was going to be a perfect match for him to be the GM of the New York Jets, but ultimately they went in another direction. Do not expect Lance Newmark to be around after next season. He's obviously done an amazing job working alongside Adam Peters and what he did in Detroit all those years. Next offseason, next cycle for assistant general managers, he's going to be high on that list. This is my little tinfoil cap, or my crystal ball that I'm looking at. New York Giants next year, when they ultimately decide to get rid of Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. Look for that to happen. Lance Newmark would be the new GM in the Giants. Just making stuff up. Totally. I'm just putting out a prediction. Love to hear what you would have to say about that prediction, whether you think Lance Newmark, number one, is doing a good job here in Washington, and number two, do you think he's going to be around for the long haul here, of course, in Washington? He's getting up there in age now, because he did spend 26 years in Detroit. So he's been doing this for quite a while. So I think his opportunity is certainly coming. I probably would put money on it. And if you want to put money on certain things, go to Bet Online. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds for everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, Bet Online is your number one source for the new year. You can even bet on the Super Bowl. That's coming up, obviously. Wish we were there. Bet Online, the game starts here. Okay, let's get into some of the others on Washington's staff. Of course, we've heard a ton about Kliff Kingsbury. Everybody wanted Kliff Kingsbury. What I loved about Kliff Kingsbury in this particular cycle is that he said, look, we have got a good thing going here, and we are going towards the NFC Championship trying to get to the Super Bowl. I'm not talking to all these teams. I'm not interviewing with them. I'm just not going to do it. My focus is going to be right here on this team with my quarterback and my offense and my head coach. And so he never did take an interview this entire cycle. He never did. Again, that's probably going to change. Look, he's financially set. He's getting paid by Washington. He's still getting paid by Arizona, the head coaching money. So financially, he doesn't need this. He's got to wait for the perfect situation. And maybe the Bears would have been that situation, right? Because the Bears have Caleb Williams, who he worked with last year at USC, obviously a young team with some really good talent on that, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So maybe that would have been a good match. But while Ben Johnson was doing interviews with the Bears, Kliff Kingsbury was not. Maybe Kliff Kingsbury was more focused on the game, and that's why Kliff Kingsbury's offense whooped Ben Johnson's offense in that divisional round game, and Ben Johnson ended up getting the job because Kliff wasn't even going to bother interviewing, where Ben Johnson, of course, did, and ultimately gets the job. I think he's going to be successful over there with Caleb Williams. But who are the teams that were talking to him? There was rumored Dallas, not talking to him, but rumored to be talking to him. Dallas, New Orleans, the Jets, the Bears, all of these teams were rumored to be in the hunt. Now, there's only one team that doesn't have a coach at the moment, and that's New Orleans. So there's one spot open. He says he's not going to interview with them. He's perfectly happy here in Washington. Why would you go from Jaden Daniels to working with Derek Carr, right? That's just not a great situation for Kliff Kingsbury to make his second move. He can be more selective now. Again, because financially he's good and he's getting a good spot right now. There's always that risk that he could turn into like a Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator in Houston, who went from a hot job candidate, head coaching candidate last year to this year getting fired. So that could always happen, but Kliff Kingsbury's got a little bit of equity within the NFL because he has done it before, and now he's showing that he can do it again. So Kliff Kingsbury probably not going to be here after the 2025 season, maybe after he gets to hold up that Lombardi. Let's see. Also, of course, defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr., who is a very straightforward, no-nonsense kind of coach. And he did get interview with the Jets. Now, the Jets ultimately went with Aaron Glenn, of course, but Joe Whitt Jr. is another hot name. Now, their defense wasn't the greatest this year, but from what everybody has said, they love his style, they love his communication methods, and they love how he, again, is a no-nonsense guy. This is how we're going to do it, and we're going to play our butts off. We're going to arrive violently. If your quarterback gets out of the pocket, we're going to hit him like he's a running back. Players love playing for a coach like that. So although he didn't get the job, look for him also to be in the coaching cycle next year, probably the year after. That's my prediction. 2026 is when he's going to get a head coaching job. So that's your OC and DC. People are coming in trying to get your OC and DC for head coaches. What about some of the guys below that? Anthony Lynn was rumored to be talking to the Cowboys about their head coaching job. Anthony Lynn, of course, is the run game coordinator and the running backs coach here in Washington. We know he's been a head coach before in with the Chargers and an interim head coach with the Bills. Very well respected coach within the league. So there was rumor that he was going to be the head coach or at least get an interview with the Cowboys. Of course, they went with Schottenheimer. Very curious move there. I think fans would have been a lot happier with Anthony Lynn as their head coach. So it looks like he's staying here in Washington as well. He fits in well, of course, with Dan Quinn, and also he fits in well with Adam Peters, having worked in San Francisco for 2 years while Adam Peters was the assistant GM over there. So Anthony Lynn is staying. So now we've got a GM and 3 coaches. That's 4 total of guys who were interviewed or at least rumored to go to another teams. And in the latest developments, there's 2 more guys to talk about. David Blough. David Blough, if you don't know who he is, he's the assistant quarterbacks coach for Washington. This is his first year in coaching. He was playing last year. He was on rosters in the last few years, but decided to go into coaching, which is a smart move. He just didn't have the physical talent, but he obviously has the aptitude to be able to teach coaching, to teach quarterbacking, and be a good coach. So now he got an interview for the Jets quarterbacks coach. So to go from assistant quarterbacks coach to quarterbacks coach in 1 year, that's pretty good. And also the Bears interviewed him for their passing game coordinator under Ben Johnson. So David Blough is one of those guys that in 6-7 years from now, you're going to start hearing about for head coaching jobs. Very well respected as well with Washington and around the league. So keep an eye out on David Blough. He still might go. He still might go to one of these teams, either the Jets or the Bears. We don't know that yet, but he has interviewed for both of those. And then lastly, the last coach that's on this list is Tavita Pritchard, their current quarterbacks coach. He is a fascinating story. He spent a bunch of years after graduating from Stanford as a quarterback, and he moved his way up at Stanford from, a graduate assistant, and then eventually he moved his way all the way up to offensive coordinator at Stanford. Tavita Pritchard did. And then he was hired 2 seasons ago by Ron Rivera's staff to be the quarterbacks coach. He is one of only 2 assistant coaches that was retained by Dan Quinn coming into the 2024 season. Ryan Kerrigan on defense, the defensive line coach, and of course Tavita Pritchard, who is now the quarterbacks coach. He was retained. That's how much Dan Quinn liked him and respected him, and Kingsbury as well. So he was interviewed for the Jacksonville offensive coordinator position. That's a pretty big deal, right? I mean, he's only 29 years old, and he has been he interviewed with Jacksonville Jaguars for the offensive coordinator position under Liam Cohen there, the new coach in Jacksonville. Tavita Pritchard is the guy you see on the sidelines sitting next to Jayden Daniels every single time they come off the field after the offense comes off the field. He sits right next to him. You see him with the iPad talking to Jayden and going over some things. Very well respected. He still could get that job or maybe another job, but hopefully he'll be back for a 3rd year as the quarterbacks coach. There's a couple of things before we finish up here is that I think are really interesting about this whole situation. I mean, I already talked about how all of a sudden teams are coming to Washington. You see when a team goes from 4 wins to 12 wins in the regular season and all the way to the NFC Championship, all of a sudden people want to copy that. It's a copycat league, right? What is Washington doing that got them to be so successful? Let's try to get some of that talent, that coaching talent, that front office talent, so that we can be successful as well. Well, Jayden Daniels is going to get a lot of these guys paid, right? I mean, think about all these guys I talked about. Other than Joe Whitt Jr., all these guys are offensive guys, right? Kliff Kingsbury, Anthony Lynn, Tavita Pritchard, David Blough. He's getting these guys paid because of how good he is. Now, look, the coaching is a big part of why Jayden Daniels is who he is. But Jayden Daniels' talent and work ethic, to include the coaching, is helping everybody in that little universe. So it's good to see what Jayden Daniels can do for them, what he can do for Jayden Daniels, all these coaches. It's a really sort of circle of life kind of thing. I really love seeing how that all works and comes together. And then also, it's also interesting that Washington has such a good sort of backup plan to where they want to get a lot of these younger assistant coaches at these positions working under guys with a lot of experience. So they have a succession plan in place. For example, if Kliff Kingsbury goes, he's got Anthony Lynn to possibly take over that situation. He's got Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach / assistant head coach. He's got Tavita Pritchard, the quarterbacks coach. He's got David Blough, the the assistant quarterbacks coach. They're working to create a system that when their top end talent leaves for bigger and better jobs, they've got the guys to just slide right in who have been within the system and who are going to teach the same thing, who've been part of that culture. And that's an awesome thing that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are building within Washington. And again, it's just really cool to finally be that team that other teams look up to, and other teams want to go in and try and poach that coaching talent. And all these guys got all these different interviews for head coaches, for offensive coordinators, for quarterbacks coach, for passing game coordinators, all of these things, and for general manager jobs in the case of Lance Newmark. So we're at that point now where we've turned the corner. We're no longer the team that people are laughing at when your coordinators are getting fired and your assistant coordinators or your position coaches are just leaving for the same job or something less, i.e. when Jack Del Rio got fired and now he's like a coach in Germany, or Eric Bieniemy gets fired and he wasn't even a coordinator at UCLA. Maybe he was the offensive coordinator at UCLA or something like that. And they were terrible and he got fired there. And that's just, we're past that. We're past that. We are now a model organization for other teams to follow. How good does that feel? If you liked this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Love to hear your comments about all these different coaches and front office guys and how you feel they fit into Washington, or what you think the game plan may be if they have to leave for a better job, or if they want to leave for a better job. And make sure you leave a rating and review if you're listening on your audio platform. We are part of the Believe Network here at Ref the District. Always appreciate everyone who is a supporter of our channel and supporter of our show. Make sure you check us out live every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook and on all your audio platforms. We are brought to you by Bet Online and Don't Sleep Energy. And until next time, be a fan.